SeriesTalk from the NIRSA Championship Series. I'm David Peters at Florida State University.
And hi, I'm Marty Dempsey from the University of Florida.
Welcome to our summer edition of SeriesTalk, where we're trying to catch you up on what's been going on since the spring and bring you all the answers that you're looking for. Well, maybe a few of the answers that you're looking for, because our first conversation is COVID and the pandemic and the craziness and the ever-changing variables that we are in right now. And wanted to allow Marty to kind of expand perhaps on some of the points that you made in a recent blog post that was part of the NIRSA Know in the month of July. Marty, what are we really trying to weigh? What are all the things we're thinking about?
Yeah, Dave, you know, 2 years ago when I joined the executive team, they forgot to mention that dealing with a pandemic on your first month as chair was going to be part of the responsibilities, but then again, we are. So we're all having to adapt to it. This is certainly something that we've been looking at as a series since March and April, since this first hit. And like, how is this going to impact people's ability to travel, to support the tournaments? We know that this is such a major moment for many of our students that look forward to participating in our events each year. How can we do so safely? And ultimately, I invite everybody to check out the blog post that's online. It's got some information from our hosts, from our past hosts, and giving us some information about whether or not they will continue to be able to honor that commitment and what they're thinking about. And to give you just the Cliff Notes version of it, we're still kind of in this holding pattern. I think a lot of us are on our campuses, going around and talking to a lot of, our colleagues within intramural sports and sport clubs. And it sounds like a lot of our campuses are still waiting to make decisions based off of what is happening in their area, their state, what is being directed to them from either the government or their support on their own campuses. So, and a lot of that is going to dictate how the championship series responds. If we have regional hosts that can host, okay, that's the first step. But then do we have teams that are able to travel to it? That's the second step. Then if we can do it, how do we keep them safe when they're there is another step along the line. So there's still some major hurdles to cross. And because many of you out there are listening are probably having to go through that on your own campuses, that's really where we're trying to keep our ear to the ground on it. And as those things develop, we will be sure to be quick, nimble, and to be able to pivot into what we think will be feasible for the fall semester. So while we haven't ruled anything out, every day that news comes out, whether that be with the NCAA or athletics, all of those things I think will end up factoring into our own decisions on our campuses. So stay tuned. I think we're getting closer and closer to announcements on that, but it just, as many of our hosts said, it's still just a little too early to make definitive statements as to how that will look for this fall.
Well, and the series leadership is not without plans. I feel like there are numerous plans for many of these different scenarios. And so I'm glad that work's been done. And there's work that's already started in this year. I mean, the series knows that we are going to exist in the future at some point. And so there are items that have to be done. Work team chairs got together. You can see some of those on the screen now, back at a virtual summit over 4 days in the month of June, and started talking about some of the key issues that are coming up. I, as work team chair for tennis, was happy to be there and contribute, but Marty leading the entire thing as our leadership team leader. Marty, what are some takeaways from the summit that you saw?
So one of the really exciting but yet challenging things that we learned from this virtual summit was having to plan for just all the different scenarios that we had this year. We're still unsure whether or not we're going to have all the tournaments, a hybrid version, none of the tournaments. So, June is typically our planning month for how we can move the needle forward overall as a series. So this year, having to plan for all the different scenarios, it was fun and getting around just a great group of colleagues, so much brain power in the room, so many people that care deeply about the series within their certain areas and seeing how all that comes together. Virtually, this is the first time we ever did it that way. And getting all of our chairs to talk about, what's going to be really important for their own work team. So they created what we call charges and goals. The charges are, this year-to-year things, those things that they have to do every year. And then the goals, what is personal to them? How are they going to make an impact to move their own team forward? And how does that fit overall within the NIRSA Championship Series? So all of those conversations were really fun over 4 full days, really, of meeting online, and discussing those focus points. So a really good time.
So between work team goals and work team charges, we do have those focus points too, kind of the overarching things that many of the teams are contributing together with, and want to take time to break those down. Let's bring in the rest of our executive team for some conversation about some of our focus points for this year. Welcome Ashley Lax from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and Jonathan Johnston, or JJ, from Texas A&M University and Commerce. Welcome aboard. Wanted to bring you all in so we can talk about some of those key points that have already been focused on by the series at some of the work team levels and some of the chairs, but are going to kind of continue out through the next year. And one of those, JJ, we'll start with you, is about clarifying roles. And that's important for us so we can help in a couple of our priorities for this series, which is to help educate our members about perhaps the roles that they will do, as well as operate more efficiently and kind of have a consistency across the board. What are some of the things we're doing in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, with the fact that there are so many roles in the series with exec team, national tournament staff, regional staff, and work team members, that we think it's important to, in order to have a best recruitment and fulfilling these roles, that everybody's got to know what their expectations are and the responsibilities of the positions they are serving in. You know, this can include time commitments with those positions, term time, actual job responsibilities of those positions, and then also how we connect to other roles within the series. And so, but I think if we can clarify some of that, then that will really help us move into giving people feedback on when they do serve in a role after they've served at a tournament or their work team term. And so, you know, we just first got to work out the expectation responsibilities in order for us to actually give feedback down the long run.
Well, I hear assessment right there. That's always something we're doing in the series for sure. And I think that's great, being able to assess our leaders and help them become better leaders in the series, certainly as part of that. But Marty, communicating our impact, yet another one of those priorities for the Series 2.0 is certainly a focal point for this year. What else are we doing on the assessment realm?
Yes, for sure. You talk about communicating the impact of involvement, you know, with now, especially now, in uncertain times that we are in, really showcasing why this is important. You know, why is it important for our clubs, our officials, our volunteer staff, our professional staff members to travel to these tournaments? What value does NIRSA Championship Series events bring to our overall individual campuses? And really showcasing, you know, what skills do participants get, not just out of winning a trophy, but they also gain valuable life experiences from participating in the program. And how do we communicate that? So I know last year we've already started gathering some videos and some testimonials from folks. I think we'll utilize this time to build on that even further, to be able to talk to folks about whenever anything can get back to normal again, why is it so important that this is a prevalent piece of an overall collegiate recreation? Jay had also mentioned that one of the initiatives is to provide feedback to people within their different roles, and that's going to show up in the assessment realm as well. Last year we had created a new evaluation tool for both work team members as well as committee chairs, so really finalizing what that looks like so that people can understand, hey, when I serve in this role, you know, how was my work perceived? How can I get better and grow out of this so I can learn about myself as a student and then again as a professional? And then finally on the assessment side, Antonio Gonzalez, our assessment work team chair, is really looking at developing a whole new vision for what the assessment work team can look like around that, communicating the impact of involvement. We spent a lot of time talking about satisfaction and why people continue to come back to our tournament, but now what are they getting from it? And who wants to hear about that? Like, you know, again, the assessment is only as good as how you communicate that out. And his team will be spending a lot of time in that area in this coming year.
Marty, and for the rest of the team, shifting gears a little bit, you know, certainly we work in the series and we talk a lot about sports. We're thinking about our tournaments, but we are not immune to what's happening outside the series. And certainly social justice issues across our country have had a major impact. And so, Ashley, the conversations have begun within this series, but what have we done so far? Where are we going? What's next so we can continue to make sure that we're focused also on this important issue?
Yeah, I think I've been really excited and encouraged to see all of the NIRSA professionals kind of rally behind the social justice issues that we currently see manifesting in a very public way right now. Our group at the summit took a very concerted effort to address that, had a really in-depth conversation. We examined NIRSA leadership and their messages that they sent and how those landed, and then talked about what our spheres of influence are. And so we wanted to include others in that conversation, so we scheduled a social justice conversation for series stakeholders. That will take place August 4th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll get that information out through the communities of practice, et cetera, but we want to make sure that we have and hear the voices of all of our stakeholders as we try and develop some action around a lot of the momentum going on right now. How can we make lasting change that makes the series as inclusive, as safe, as welcoming for everyone as we possibly can? So I'm really excited to continue to see where those conversations go and then to put some action behind those words.
You know, an inclusive environment, it's part of our promise in this series. And so it's glad to hear that we're continuing to have that conversation and that people have the ability to engage coming up because it impacts not just our leaders and our volunteers, but also our participants. One of the other things on a heightened awareness of the participants who are doing a great job is the Hall of Fame. And those of you who've been part of the series and have seen that in flag football, there's some movements now to maybe make sure that other sports kind of have a similar opportunity for the Hall of Fame. JJ, what are we looking at in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of exciting, to see how flag football has hosted the Hall of Fame over the several years, and the officials and the players that are recognized at that event in order to honor their achievements over the long term. And so what we're kind of looking at now is like, how can that also be go across the series and all the rest of the sports, especially with players, club players, officials. But then another big piece that's I feel like sort of missing is the contribution of all the volunteers for the entire series and their efforts for long weekends, weeks, and dedicated time to prepping for these tournaments and the series work. And so we think that there's a drive to centralize a little bit, the Hall of Fame for the series across all the sports. And we're excited to see what that can mean for, as each sport is unique and how they deliver their tournaments, that's going to be a crucial piece to this as well. But something that we value the contributions of everyone within the series. And that's where I think the Hall of Fame is moving towards.
More news to come, certainly, as that is a focus point for the coming year to see how we can shake that out. One of the things that's always on our mind about this time of year is regional tournaments. And we were thinking about the fall and flag football, but the whole year coming up. Marty, we've been doing some things just with regional tournaments in general and how those are run. What are some of the changes or modifications we're maybe considering going forward?
And JJ was talking about all the people that, and how we recognize folks across the series. Well, our regional hosts deserve a ton of recognition for all the work that it takes into putting on any NIRSA Championship Series event. So really what we want to look at this year is when we are getting back to normal with things, we're able to host regional tournaments again, how can we make sure that our hosts feel well supported to host? And we can do that by helping make things a little bit more efficient for them, whether it be through our paperwork processes and our registration processes that we set up. Can we set up any kind of mentorship between folks that have done it for 20, 25 years versus people that are just hopping in for the first time? Or whether it be just efficient communication channels or how we share ideas. Last year we rolled out the Zoom webinars. Who knew that Zoom would now be the way we're doing everything now? Last year with flag football and basketball, we had a chance for all of these different stakeholders to come together to talk about just best practices within series. So how do we continue to elevate those types of sessions, again, with the focus on making it an efficient and enjoyable experience for veteran hosts, but as well as new hosts that may be just wanting to dip their toe in the water for the first time.
Well, you mentioned it there, Marty. We've been a little bit more on Zoom this year. And so in the virtual realm, virtual offerings are something that we're getting into. And not just having meetings among series leaders and volunteers, but we also did some great work here with our basketball officials earlier this year. So I want to turn it over to Ashley to talk more about that, but maybe some other things that are on the horizon with regard to virtual offerings.
Absolutely. So unfortunately, our National Basketball Championship wasn't able to be held in person, but that did not stop our NIRSA professionals from immediately jumping into action and making sure that we were able to provide something for our student officials. And so John Broskin and his group did a fantastic job of facilitating the National Basketball Virtual Officials Clinic, and that got resounding applause, success. People really enjoyed that, not just the officials that were able to attend, but a lot of the professionals seeing that effort going towards providing something for students during this very uncertain time. And so based on all of that success and positive feedback, we are taking a look at what other virtual offerings may be possible for our student officials, for professionals, really just what can the NIRSA series provide to be able to continue that development, knowing that we have really cool opportunities to sharpen skills and let our leaders shine. How can we continue to take advantage of that virtually? So we're excited to see what we can roll out this fall and beyond in terms of meeting people where they're at virtually.
I think, as you could tell, there's so much to do this year. And while we are, fingers crossed, hoping to have our usual events, we know that there's work to be done. And there's a lot of great things to focus on that our work teams will have an opportunity to contribute to, and members as well. So Ashley and JJ, thanks for joining today. Well, we may not know what we're doing exactly with all the tournaments in the fall, but we know what we're doing the next few weeks. And that starts with work team orientation. Marty?
Yeah, one of the initiatives for this year was really, again, to educate our members, one of the focus Series 2.0 priorities. And so this year we are rolling out a brand new thing where we are bringing all of our work team members in, no matter what work team that they serve in. They're coming to this orientation. If you're on a work team and you're listening out there, you've been invited to it. So make sure you check your email from that. It'll come up at the end of July, where we just want to provide, how your role fits into the series, what the expectations there, what you can expect from the executive team, and really just be fully transparent with all the things that are happening within this big puzzle that is the NIRSA Championship Series.
Well, work team members, as well as anyone who has interest in the series, can also join us for the social justice conversation as it's connected to the series. That's coming up on Tuesday, August the 4th at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. You'll get more information in some of the communities of practice, or just check out nirsaplay.com for a link to that Zoom conversation again on Tuesday, August the 4th at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we'll roll out as much information as we can when it is available. You'll hear all of that from Marty online, and we'll be back with another series talk coming up this fall. But hey, that's it for right now. I'm David at Florida State University.
And I'm Marty Dempsey at the University of Florida.
Thanks for joining us on Series Talk. This is a production of NIRSA, Leaders in Collegiate Recreation.